You are listening to the Sports Corner on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. Today is Thursday, October 2nd, and today is a very big day in Major League Baseball and in the National Football League as we head into Week 5. But before we get into all of that and much more, I'm your host, Sebastian Stratton, joined by my very amazing co-host, Lorenzo Gonzalez, who is operating the board today as an ADJ. Great job, Lorenzo. You did a great job turning the mics on. I saw your fingers working.
Thank you.
And
I'm
also joined by Perry Liss. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Hello, how are you?
And James Gregg, our biggest Yankee fan in studio. Gentlemen,
Yeah, happy to be back.
how are we all doing today?
I am doing fantastic. I'm still on cloud nine after the win last night. I hate that I have hope again, but I'm feeling good. 3 hours of sleep, it still feels like yesterday. That's what it feels like for me.
And Perry, I know, so why don't you introduce, I guess, to the listeners, first of all, who's your favorite MLB team?
Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah, we don't really like this guy.
No. Well, we welcome all MLB fans. It's okay. Perry, first of all, how confident are you after the Dodgers swept the Cincinnati Reds yesterday? How confident do you feel about a Phillies-Dodgers National League Division Series matchup?
I mean, if you look at the NL, in my opinion, I know like the AL listeners are going to get mad out here. If you really look at it, the NL is 10 times better than the AL. The AL East is probably the only team in that division that is better than that is better than the NL. Besides that, and the Phillies-Dodgers playoff game will probably, in my opinion, be the best series in the playoff teams. Those are the most, in my opinion, the most two dominant teams in the NL besides the Brewers. And Ohtani's Ohtani. Like, he's going to do what he's going to do. He's going to make strikeouts. He's going to make hits. But if the Phillies line can just, figure out what his pitch is going to be, which is just unpredictable. It's just Shohei Ohtani. You're never going to know. But personally, if, someone like Schwarber, who's hitting, I think almost over 60 home runs now. I think that
Roughly
was
50, yeah.
It was 50 something. Oh, yeah, around 50, 60. I think the Phillies have a chance. Do I think they're going to win? No, but I think they have a chance.
And Lorenzo, I know that yesterday through our Instagram DMs, you have a very special announcement. Is it true that you are going away from the Pittsburgh Pirates and jumping the bandwagon?
Man, I wouldn't even call it jumping the bandwagon. First of all, for the listeners out there, I'm not really too big of a Pirates fan. Not because the team's bad. I'm not the biggest baseball fan. Haven't really been in depth with it since I was 13, 14 years old. So I wouldn't say jumping the bandwagon, but I kind of taken a liking to the Cubs. Kind of. I've kind of taken a liking to them, but I wouldn't say I'm still trying to find a new team, Sebastian, to get back into baseball with, even if it's the Pirates or any of the other 29 teams.
Do you plan on watching Game 3 today, Cubs-Padres?
I don't think I can.
All right.
I don't think I can.
Hopefully they win for you. Maybe you jump the bandwagon. But today is...
I hate jumping the bandwagon, by the way.
All right. Well, I don't know. Unless, again, it'll probably be a situation with Paul Skeens. They don't end up paying him. He goes to the Yankees, Mets, or Dodgers, and the cycle continues. Again, that's the same thing with all these low-market teams. But getting into today in Major League Baseball, there are 3 elimination games taking place, and once the MLB format switched from 2 wildcard teams to 3 in 2022, there have been 12 wildcard series since the introduction of that third team and the shift to a best-of-3 series format. And in all 12 of those matchups, the team that won Game 1 went on to win the series, and in 10 of those cases, they swept the series 2-0. Today, the Tigers, Padres, and Yankees all have the chance to make history. Very exciting in Major League Baseball. But let's get started with our team, James, the New York Yankees. This is it, Game 3 in the Bronx. And after the Dodgers' victory, the game will start at 8 p.m. Eastern. You did tell me before the show that you are going to the game tonight. How excited are you?
I will be attending. I'm excited. They got me back on the hook. I can't lie. After that Game 1 loss, I was not feeling great. I was thinking season's on the rope. I was thinking we would lose in 2. But, the Yankees found a way, pulled me back in. Excited to be there tonight. I think it's going to be, I don't know. It's going to be hard to see. You got 2 young guys going for both teams. You got Cam Schlittler for the Yankees, Connolly Early for the Red Sox. two young guns on the bump. It's going to be like whoever wavers. These guys haven't seen much postseason play, if any postseason play at all. Cam Schlittler's only been up for a few months. You got to think this guy's either crazy excited and wants the challenge, or you're nervous as anything. So we're going to see who has the better performance. I don't know if you want to talk about Game 1, how that went, but I think Game 1 was lost due to poor managing and just being outmanaged by the Red Sox. But, keys for Game 3, I think we're going to see a slugfest. As much as I love Cam Schlittler, I think lineups are just going to see some fireworks tonight. Like some juiced ball type fireworks. I think there's going to be homers from both sides. I think the scores will be high, and I think it's whoever manages better, whoever manages their bullpen better. We'll have to see. It'll be exciting. It'll be exciting for sure.
I'm very excited. And well, first of all, I know the game's at 8 p.m. What time do you plan to leave? Because there's definitely going to be crazy traffic at the stadium.
I plan to leave and take the train from here at roughly 4:07. I think the train leaves, or like 4:10. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. No, I think 5:07 to get into the city by 6 o'clock, and then take the subway to the stadium. I'm meeting some buddies there. It's gonna be crazy. This is the greatest rivalry in all of sports. Going to a Game 3, a lot of bragging rights on the line. This is more than just a wild card series game. Huge bragging rights on the line. So we'll just have to see. I'm pretty nervous. I can't lie.
Lorenzo, any disagreement with James saying that the Yankees-Red Sox is the greatest rivalry in sports, or do the Steelers-Ravens beat that?
Absolutely not. James is 100% on spot. Okay. But I will say, I would... About what?
I was about to throw hands if you were to say.
Oh, no. These two, it is known that the Red Sox and the Yankees hate each other's guts, just like the Cowboys and the Packers. Same kind of deal. Or the Niners and the Cowboys. Same kind of deal. But you know what? The Red Sox and Yankees rivalry and baseball itself has been going on far beyond football has ever gone at this point. It's been going on since, over 150 years at this point? Mm-hmm. It is kind of crazy to ever say that there's any sports rivalry more brutal, that two teams that hate each other's guts more than the Red Sox and the Yankees. So, no disagreements here.
And James, you mentioned it earlier. I think it's only right if we do go back to Game 1. This is primetime baseball, something that Rob Manfred, the commissioner, dreams of. You have Garrett Crochet going for the Red Sox. You acquire him in a trade last offseason from the Chicago White Sox from the South Side. And the New York Yankees, Max Fried. You give him an 8-year contract. And it was a great game. Starting off, definitely was supposed to be a pitcher's duel, and it was exactly that. As Garrett Crochet, the winning pitcher on the day, went 7 1/3, 4 hits, 1 earned run, and 11 strikeouts. And on the other hand, Max Fried, 6 1/3, 4 hits, no runs, no earned, 3 walks, and 6 strikeouts. And it started off in the bottom of the second with Anthony Volpe, who we have criticized on this show, takes an 0-2 fastball up and away and rips it into the short porch and gives the Yankees that 1-0 lead. And back and forth we go from innings 3 to 6. No scoring, great defense. I thought that Jose Caballero did a great job at third. I thought that Ahmed Rosario did a great job at second. But here's where things get very interesting in the top of the 7th, where Max Fried finishes the 6th inning, kind of labors through, wasn't exactly the cleanest inning. The command was it was definitely deteriorating slightly, but again, you kind of expect that as you get to the game, and he's nearing 100 pitches. So the top of the inning starts, and during the bottom of the 6th, Aaron Boone goes up to Max Fried and says, "Hey, how you feeling?" He says, "I feel good. I'll give you whatever we need." And Boone says, "All right, I just want you to get Duran." And who Boone was talking about was Jarren Duran, the left fielder for the Red Sox. So he gets Jarren Duran out on a ground ball, and at 100 pitches with Luke Weaver warming up in the bullpen, Aaron Boone decides to go to Luke Weaver, who then proceeds to give up a walk and 2 hits in a row by a pinch hit, go-ahead 2-run single by Masataka Yoshida off the bench, and the Red Sox led 2-1. And then in the 9th inning, David Bednar gave up a double to Alex Bregman, and the Red Sox won 3-1. And we'll get to that bottom of the 9th, of course. But James, how do we feel about Boone pulling his ace, Max Fried?
All right, this is a common case of a managerial disaster class. All right, that's just like that's the type of game. Now, people may disagree. That's the type of game where you should lose your job. There's just a certain amount of things that, as a fan, I feel like I should not be more aware than a manager, and that's just managing with feel and not managing with numbers. All right, you have to manage with feel because at the end of the day, numbers mean nothing in the postseason. I mean, for God's sake, we saw Anthony Volpe hit a home run against Garrett Crochet. Numbers mean absolutely nothing in the postseason. And when one of the main storylines of your season is that your bullpen, you haven't been able to rely on them. They haven't been good. They haven't shown up in big spots. They've blown games. They've lost you so many countless games. And Max Fried is cruising right there. You got to give him at least one base runner. Like, if he gives up a walk, fine. And then the argument that I've seen is, well, if he gives up a walk and then Luke Weaver comes on and he inherits a runner, but you can't say if. That's not how it works. Max Fried is cruising. He's pitching a shutout. He's got 102 pitches, so what? They're saving him for what? February? If they don't win tonight, he's not pitching until February. I understand what they were saying. He's got to make 7 starts this postseason if the Yankees were to go all the way. So they're trying to save him and they're planning for the long haul, but there is no other 6 starts if you don't win this series. You have to give him, if he closes out the 7th, and he does fine, and he's a pitch-to-contact type of pitcher. He doesn't have to have these long, grueling ABs where he's going for the strikeout. He could have had 2 more batters on 10 pitches, and he would have finished at 112, would have been fine. That would have been more than fine, and with the way that he was pitching, and he was losing it just a little bit, but he was still commanding the zone. If he gave him the bottom of the lineup, and he just let him finish out the 7th, Devin comes in, surprising to say. Devin comes in the 8th, has a clean inning, and then Bednar in the 9th. Even if he gives up that one run, it's still 1-1. So that is a managerial disaster class, starting with that, and it also started before the game even started at roughly 2 p.m. when the lineup dropped. I understand Garrett Crochet is one of the best pitchers in the game, strong lefty, but you have to play your best players. You have to. You can't be playing some lineup that has never seen the field before the postseason. On such a crucial game. In such a crucial game 1, Jazz needs to be in there. Like we saw yesterday, even against the lefty, if he's not getting a hit, if he walks, he gets on base. He ended up scoring the winning run just based on his speed. Ben Rice, we saw him hit bullets off of lefties yesterday. Has to be in there. One of the best offensive players in the lineup. I just think up and down yesterday. It was bad. It was just a terrible managerial disaster class and got outmanaged by Alex Cora.
Going back to 2 p.m. right there, first of all, I agree with the fact that Chisholm definitely has to be in the lineup. I don't hate that Rosario was starting. I really don't. He was 6 for 9 coming into the game versus Crochet. I think that if you give him 2 at-bats and then you put Chisholm in there, I'm fine with that. I also thought that Caballero played good defense at third. And James, you may not, I guess you will disagree with me. I don't hate that move of taking Fried out. I don't. I would have been fine with it either way. But here's the thing. I think that if Boone goes out there, like Carlos Rodon did yesterday, Carlos Rodon pushed to keep pitching in that game, and he did it. He got out of the inning and induced a double play. If you are Max Fried and you are the ace, as Aaron Boone is coming to the mound, you have to fight to stay in that game. That was Luke Weaver's game to win, and he did not. He blew it. So, of course, every move is going to be judged. If you keep Fried in and he walks a guy and gives up a 2-run homer, then everybody will pinpoint the fact that Boone should have taken Fried out. I don't disagree with taking him out. I disagree with, and I think Michael Kay brought it up on the postgame show, if you are Max Fried, the ace, Aaron Boone is going to listen to what you have to say. And I do agree with Boone sometimes does a terrible job of not listening to in-game circumstances. I think that's what separates him and Alex Cora, is Alex Cora is able to adjust and at some point ride your ace. He did it with Garrett Crochet, and he did it, and then Boone did it with Max Fried. So Weaver struggled. He gave up, it was an 11-pitch at-bat to Cedon Rafaela, which led to a walk, bing and bada boom, and then all of a sudden you're down 2-1. So I don't necessarily hate it. I don't think the guys in the post-game studio did either, and John Flaherty and Jack Curry. Not saying that validates my point whatsoever. But again, I do understand where Boone is coming from. If it was an easy 6th inning, I think it would have made the decision much easier. But again, he labored. You had Nick Sogard coming up second in that inning, who already had 2 hits off of Fried. Luke Weaver is pretty solid. Good fastball, good splitter combination. So do I hate the move? No. Did it work out? Absolutely not. It lost them game 1. They should be on a flight to Toronto already, but it didn't happen. And here we are in a game 3. And then on the bottom of the 9th, Chapman starts off. He comes in with that 2-run lead and gives up 3 straight singles, and Giancarlo Stanton is due up. James, how do we feel? Well, me personally, once Stanton got up, I thought it was game over. He's been so good in the playoffs. I had that feeling a double in the gap was coming.
I mean, when you see Stanton in all of his glory in the playoffs, like you see him standing there menacingly, 3 straight singles off of Chapman. There is no outs, and I don't think you'd pick another active player in the league right now to be up with bases loaded, no outs, in the bottom of the 9th in the playoffs, other than Giancarlo Stanton. You did get that feeling something special was going to happen. He hasn't had his A game. Now, can you blame him? I see a lot of people online saying that Stanton is one of the sole causes for the Game 1 loss because of his double play in the first inning and because of his huge strikeout in that big moment. I don't know if you can totally pinpoint him on the loss right there. It's just another classic case. I mean, it's on national television. Everybody's looking at the Yankees for the first time since last year on national television and for the few games that they had, and it looks really bad. But for Yankee fans who have watched all year, I had devil's advocate, and I was thinking good at the same time. Could this be the end of the game, or was this just going to be a classic case of the Yankees blowing another bases loaded, no outs inning? And that's exactly what happened. So yeah, I mean, I wanted Stanton to come through right there, but can't blame him also for everything good he's done in the past. But that's definitely going to be a key. If the Yankees are going to go deep in this playoffs, Stanton's got to wake up. And
that was a devastating 2-2 splitter by Aroldis Chapman. I think after 4 straight fastballs, how can't you be sitting another fastball? Especially, again, Chapman was sitting maybe 97, 98, but when he wants to, he can definitely dial it up into the triple digits. So he has a plethora of options. But then it didn't go well for the Yankees. Stanton strikes out, Chisholm pops up, and then Grisham comes up to the plate already 0 for 3 with the hat trick. He strikes out again and ends with the golden sombrero. So that ends the game, and the Yankees lost 3-1, and we're down in the series 1-0. And then yesterday, Brian Bayo versus Carlos Rodon. And I see some Yankee fans referring to Rodon as your co-ace, which I can get because Rodon has been really good this season, dominates the strike zone with that fastball, slider option. But then that lineup drops, I think around 2 p.m. as well, and I think every Yankee fan gave some sort of sigh of relief as Ben Rice and Jazz Chisholm Jr. were both slated into the lineup, and the bottom of the first inning was basically a big, on the air I'll say it, you're such a silly goose, Aaron Boone. What do we think about that bottom of the first?
I love the way you put that. That's like the perfect way to explain it. I mean, it's so hard to think in a playoff game sitting Ben Rice in game 1. I'm not even going to go back to that. But he really explained yesterday why this kid is probably going to be a star. And you can make an argument that he already is a star and one of the best offensive players in baseball. He hits a moonshot line drive that got out in right field to give the Yankees a crucial 2-run lead in the first inning because you knew that the Boston, their scrappy lineup was going to score runs. So that was a crucial 2-0 lead that Ben Rice gave them. And not only that, he crushed another single, which wasn't crushed. It's to the left side. He poked it to the left side. But he also crushed a lefty 110-mile-per-hour lineout. That would have at the time given us a 2-run lead and scored 2 runs in the later innings. But that's water under the bridge considering that they won. But that line drive out was enough to show he can hit the lefty. This kid, if you don't know him, and if you're kind of casual or don't even really watch the Yankees and haven't heard the name Ben Rice yet, that much, get ready to hear him a whole lot more. He's one of the most unluckiest hitters in all of baseball, in super high percentiles, in all the offensive categories. He should have had a batting average 50 points higher than what he had. He's in like the 90-something percentile in hard hit balls, in exit velocity, and all this. This kid is developing right before our eyes, and there is no way he should be out of any lineup for the rest of the playoffs.
No doubt. I agree 100%. There comes a point in the playoffs where I think Cameron Maybin, former Yankee player and broadcaster for the Yes Network, stated, you need to play your best 9 no matter what. Throw the matchups out the window and go with feel. How can you sit Austin Wells after he basically saves the season yesterday and drives in Jazz Chisholm Jr. And Boone said before the playoffs, no matter what, when there is a lefty starting, Paul Goldschmidt will be at first. I do not think you can start Paul Goldschmidt today. I think the only move that you may make, and I'm fine if they don't, it's whatever, is put Jose Caballero at third base over McMahon versus the lefty. I thought that Caballero played great defense in Game 1, and he's obviously not as good as a defender as Ryan McMahon, but he's good. He definitely gets on base, and you can use that speed, but the one downside is you can't use him for speed later in the game.
Yeah, here's what I think. Even if there's a lefty starting tonight, got to have Ben Rice in that lineup. Might disagree with me. You got to have Jazz in this lineup too. Jazz's speed won us the game yesterday. That's what it's like having a player with all those tools. Is he the best against lefties? He definitely doesn't excel. He excels against righties, as most lefties do. But he has extreme speed. His glove saved us a run last night that would have lost us the game as well. Jazz is just a player that he's so versatile, so dynamic. He breaks the mold in the Bronx. He needs to be in that lineup even if you bat him low. If he walks, gets on base, stolen base threat, he can score from first on a single. He scored from first on a single to win us the game. That is a player who wins baseball games. He needs to be in there. Ryan McMahon did have a hit last night. I liked what I saw from him at the plate. Even if he goes 0 for 4, I think there's a case that he should be playing third just to make sure that the defense is good. Turned a couple double plays yesterday, made some nice plays overall. I think he just has to be in there because of the glove, but he's the only person that I can kind of get around being like, all right, if there's a tough lefty, if you want to play the matchups, put Caballero there because he looked good in Game 1. But as for everybody else, you just have to play your best 9. If you want to put Goldschmidt, you just can't. You can't do it. If Goldschmidt's in over Ben Rice today, I don't know. Maybe there's an argument that, it might sound crazy, but there's an argument that maybe Stanton sits to give him a game, and we might see Goldschmidt or Ben Rice at DH. I don't think he's going to do that, knowing Boone, but I just think that you got to have both in. And if Goldschmidt's at first base, wouldn't be that crazy to say Ben Rice could be behind the dish tonight. We'll have to see.
Well, one thing's for certain, it's decision time for Aaron Boone. I'm sure he'll go over all of this with his bench coach, Brad Ausmus, maybe Brian Cashman and the analytics department, which hopefully they stay out of the way, because if they make the decisions, then Jazz Chisholm wouldn't be in there. But it is Game 3 tonight. It is Cam Schlittler, the rookie out of Northeastern, who finished the 2025 campaign with a 4-3 record, 2.96 ERA, versus Connolly Early, who made his Major League Baseball debut less than a month ago. The rookie out of Virginia, 1-2 with a 2.33 ERA, and he features 6 different pitches: fastball, curveball, changeup, sinker, slider, and sweeper, with a fastball that lives in the mid to upper 90s. And his minor league stats this season, 10-3 with a 2.6 ERA, and a little bit of a funky delivery. So maybe that will be a factor. I don't know. I think the Yankees saw a little bit of a funky delivery with Garrett Crochet, so I think that they will be okay. But that is Game 3 in the Bronx tonight at 8 p.m. And let's shift over to, we'll not totally shift over, stay in the American League, as we have another elimination game taking place today as the Cleveland Guardians host the Detroit Tigers in Game 3 of the Wild Card Series in Cleveland, as Slade Ciccone, 7-7, 4.30 ERA on the bump, versus Jack Flaherty, a World Series champion last season with the Los Angeles Dodgers, 8-15 with a 4.64 ERA. James, these are two division rivals. Cleveland comes back and takes the division, the largest comeback in MLB history, at 15.5 games behind the Tigers, 1-1. We are all tied up. No Tarek Skubal for the Tigers. It is Flaherty versus Ciccone. What are your keys to the game in this matchup? And the winner will face the Seattle Mariners in the American League Division Series.
All right, listen, you mentioned this earlier. There's been 12 of these, and all 12 of these wild card series, and all 12 have been won by the winner of the first game. They have moved on. Now I'm going to go ahead and say, I think all 3 Game 3s today will be the exact opposite, including this Guardians-Tigers Game 3. I think the Guardians, the way they play, if you guys have watched any of the first 2 games right now, they're such a scrappy team. Like, oh my gosh, the way they get their runs, it's so hard to pitch to them. When things aren't going their way, they will drop a bunt and beat it out. They will get infield hits and they will beat it out. They will put pressure on your defense. They'll put pressure on your pitcher to make PFPs. Practice those PFPs, because when the Guardians are in town, they will make you do it. I think keys to the game, Guardians just got to stick to their game plan. I mean, Stephen Vogt, props to this guy. I mean, I can't believe there was talks of him possibly getting the boot when he's bringing this Guardians team of just gamers. Like, these guys will do anything. They'll scratch and claw to get a win. There's only like a few guys. There's only like a few guys in here that are home run threats, but that doesn't matter because they're just gonna scratch and claw to get runs across. If you're the Tigers right now, I mean, you just have to prioritize like offense because I think Jack Flaherty, he's gonna do what he's got to do. I assume he's gonna turn it up for the playoffs. He has in the past. Got to go to the bullpen when you feel it. Like, because you just can't put this Guardians team down, and you can't just say, they're down X amount of runs. Let's sit back now. I think they have to keep their foot on the gas if the Tigers want to take this to the next round. You just have to score runs because the Guardians will find a way.
I agree totally, and I think the keys, first of all, for the Cleveland Guardians, I think the way you manufacture runs, as I agree, bunt the baseball, move runners over. If Steven Kwan gets on base, he's a threat no matter what. We know what Jose Ramirez can do. And I think for the Guardians, you have to get the ball to your big three. And what I mean by the big three is the trio of Eric Sabrowski, Hunter Gaddis, and Cade Smith. And I know a lot of MLB managers during the full 162-game season, the whole thing is, I don't want pitchers throwing 3 games in a row. Well, you can't save anyone for the division series if you don't get there. And Cade Smith, their best reliever, threw 19 pitches in Game 1, 31 in Game 2. I think he has to throw in Game 3 if opportunity calls. Of course, if you're up by 5 or 6 runs, maybe not. Again, no lead is safe in Major League Baseball. He can rest tomorrow if you have to, but you can't guarantee Cade Smith pitching in a division series versus the Mariners if you don't get there. So I think for the Guardians, you have to keep this game as close as possible, manufacture a lead until about the 7th inning, and then throw it over to your big three. I think Tim Herron could be an option. The lefty, he threw 13 pitches in Game 2. Joey Cantillo, who pitched a lot in the regular season and was a factor in the championship series versus the Yankees last season. And for the Tigers, you have to get off to an early start on offense. Don't let the Guardians get to their bullpen with the lead. Kerry Carpenter, Gleyber Torres, Javier Baez at the bottom of the lineup, Dylan Dingler, the catcher, who resurged in the bottom of the lineup in the regular season. I think the Tigers have to get off to a good start, and Cleveland has to hand it off to their bullpen. So an AL Central battle right there. And the last matchup in the winner-take-all Wild Card Series, we will shift over to the National League as the Chicago Cubs are hosting the San Diego Padres with Jameson Taillon, the former New York Yankee, taking the ball for the Chicago Cubs. 11-7 on the year, 3.68 ERA versus 39-year-old Yu Darvish, who a lot of people know the name of, 5-5 and up and down 2025 campaign, 5.38 ERA. And before we get into our thoughts on this game, Perry, do you have any preference about who advances, or are you just Phillies? We're all good. We already know who we're playing in the next round.
Well, for me, I do believe that the Padres have more of a threat. I can't say really why. When it comes to the NL, it's very unpredictable. Like I said, I feel like there's so many good teams in the NL that you can't really know. Personally, I think the Brewers have it all when it comes to the NL. I know you did not ask that, but personally, I'd have to say the Padres. But when it comes down to it, I'm just making sure my Philadelphia Phillies get to the World Series.
That's all that matters at the end of the day. They already know their division series matchup, and you really can't look forward to the championship series unless you win the division series. And I don't think anyone is counting out the defending World Series champs in the Los Angeles Dodgers. But, James, I'll get your take on this. What are your keys to the game for both teams, starting with the Chicago Cubs and then the San Diego Padres?
This is another one. Like I said, 12 matchups, 12 won by the team who won the first game. Don't think that's happening today. I think all 3 matchups today are going to flip the script on that. I think the Padres are taking this one, and I think it's going to be a bomb fest. Like that's what it has to be. These are 2 killer lineups going at it. The keys for the game is just you got to score. Whoever has the offensive explosion is going to move on. We saw Manny Machado finally come through yesterday. Huge 2-run homer. I think we're going to see stuff from Tatis, Jackson Merrill, Manny Machado. I think they're going to go off. But at the same time, you got to have fireworks from Seiya Suzuki. Got to have scrappy at-bats from Dansby Swanson. I think this could be potentially the best game of the day, especially with the 2 starters on the mound. You gotta get to Yu Darvish though if you're the Cubs, because you don't want to get to the Padres' super bullpen. They will shut you down. We've seen Mason Miller go 2 games in a row and just absolutely shove. He threw possibly the best pitch in Major League Baseball history yesterday, throwing 104 painted on the black. You just can't hit that, and you don't want to face the Padres bullpen. Keys to the game for the Cubs: gotta hit the Padres starter. Keys to the game for the Padres: you got to hit the Cubs starter. So it's whoever has the initial offensive explosion.
You talked about Mason Miller. That pitch, it was exactly 104.5, and it wasn't 104.5, throw as hard as you can. Well, I take that back. I guess it was if you're throwing 104.5, but that was painted on the outside corner. I don't think any Major League Baseball hitter, if you know that pitch is coming, 10 out of 10 times, that is very difficult to hit. And I think I'm going to reiterate what I said about the Cleveland Guardians. I think the key for the San Diego Padres is get it to your big three in lefty Adrian Morejon, Mason Miller, and closer Robert Suarez. This is a similar situation where 2 out of these 3 pitchers, Morejon and Miller, both threw in games 1 and 2. Mason Miller threw 13 pitches in game 1, 27 in game 2. But I think you throw all of that out the window. You need to be available for game 3. Mason Miller, if it's 1 inning, it's 1 inning. If it's a shutdown inning, bases loaded, 1 out, 2nd and 3rd, no out, Mason Miller needs to be in the ball game in the 7th inning or later, because he is your absolute shutdown option. And when you are throwing in the triple digits consistently, that is very difficult to hit. And for the Chicago Cubs, it's get off to a good start on offense. You have Yu Darvish coming in, who has had an up-and-down campaign, as we mentioned. Doesn't overwhelm anyone with fastball velocity. So I think for all of these hitters, Michael Busch, and then Pete Crow, Armstrong, everyone in the middle of that lineup, Kyle Tucker, who returned from an injury, you need to get off to a good start and put the pressure on early so you do stay away from that big 3. But it is elimination day in Major League Baseball. Tons are at stake for many teams. 3 teams will move on and 3 teams will go home. But when we get back here on the Sports Corner, we will shift over to the National Football League, because there is tons to talk about there, and the injury bug is widespread, and ties. I don't know how we still have that, but that is going to do it for now. You are listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair, and we will be right back momentarily. We are back here on the Sports Corner. You are listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair, and it is now time to shift over to the National Football League, because there is a lot to talk about there. First of all, before we get into anything, I know I probably say it every year, but this season just seems to be flying way too fast. Lorenzo, before we know it, it'll be over. I mean, it's very interesting, to say the least. We have Thursday Night Football tonight, and the first story I do want to get into is the Sunday Night Football game that took place last week at AT&T Stadium, as the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers, with Micah Parsons returning to his old team, a back-and-forth matchup, George Pickens scoring 2 touchdowns. Thank you so much for fantasy football purposes. And that game ended in a 40-40 tie, the first tie in an NFL game in a little less than 3 years, when the Giants and the Commanders tied 20-20 on December 4th, 2022. Gentlemen, what do we think about NFL games ending in ties, and should they be abolished entirely, or do we agree with it for player safety perspective?
Well, Sebastian, I'm actually on the camp of your side. And Sebastian's going to go on his thing soon. I hate ties. I hate ties in a football game. I don't care what era we're talking about, because there used to be a lot more ties way back in the day, going back to the 50s, 60s, 70s, before that too. Then they started implementing games where there was a sudden death. There was the sudden death, the 2 quarters. This is a lot later on. They did the 2 quarters thing. But it is so hard I don't think like casual fans of football or people who don't watch football realize how hard it is for a football game to end in a tie. Like, that is a lot. If a game ends in a tie in football nowadays, both teams are in a total stalemate. There's no way around it, because football, anything can happen in football, just like any other sport. But there's a time. There's 15 minutes in each quarter. There's a certain time limit, and there's always been. You never nowadays. When's the last time that you have seen a tie before this game happened? I want to ask that question. I want to put that to the floor. When is the last time you've seen a tie? Not an overtime game, a tie.
I think it was that Giants-Commanders game, and you mentioned how difficult it is for games to end in a tie. Once you get to overtime in that 10-minute period, you are playing for the win. And I think some of that tie has to do to, and I'm not saying we'll see more of it in the future, is that both teams now get to possess the ball in overtime. Originally, if you score a touchdown, game over. That's it. We saw it in the playoffs with the Chiefs and the Bills a few years ago, where the Chiefs scored their touchdown on the opening drive, and Josh Allen and the Bills were unable to possess the football. And now you have the Packers and Cowboys going into that overtime, both trying to win that game. In that Packers game, with about 9 seconds left, 3rd and goal, I don't know if you saw that, Lorenzo, but that almost ended in a catastrophe. With 9 seconds left, instead of spiking the ball, Jordan Love in the offense rushed to the line of scrimmage, and he takes a 4-second drop back in the pocket and throws it into the end zone, and it tipped off, I believe, Romeo Doubs. If that ball deflects higher up in the air, that game ends with 0 seconds, and the Dallas Cowboys win. Instead, it takes a quick hit to the ground, and there's 1 second remaining on the clock. Perry, how do you feel about ties?
Well, going on with the tie answer, because you brought up Jordan Love and messing up that throw, I was watching that game, and it just seemed like they had no idea what they were doing at that plan, whether it was the head coach or him. It just seemed like he did not know what to do there. So, I mean, the fact that they did not mess up that situation and ended up getting a tie, Green Bay should be thankful. But, like Lorenzo said, ties are awful. There's a reason why every other sport goes into double overtime or goes into triple, whatever. I mean, baseball has at one point had 20 innings, which is just insane in my opinion. You know, basketball will have double overtime. Hockey eventually will end in a shootout. So the fact that there has to be a way to win and football doesn't, considering the fact we only have 17 games of this already, you want there to be a winner, especially for this Dallas Green Bay game, which two teams both had a point. You know, with Micah leaving for Green Bay and Dallas just wanting to prove to them that we don't need Micah. It was just I think it was more just an L for both of them in the way, but anytime the Dallas Cowboys lose or even claim a tie, it's a victory for me. I despise them.
Yeah, I completely agree with the tie thing. I really want to say though, looking into the deeper picture of it inside for both teams, this is I would say, like Perry said, it's bad for both teams that the tie happened. I would say it's far worse for the Packers, and this is because it's just like he said, you took the star player on the Cowboys football team, and you still mustered the same kind of defense that the Cowboys had, despite having a so-called worse line, worse linebackers, worse core. You still had the same kind of game that the Cowboys did. And the Cowboys this season have been if you don't know, if you haven't watched the games for the Cowboys, they have been awful. They have been an awful team.
And I love every second of it.
They lost to Perry's team, the Eagles, by 4 points, which was it was an okay game. It was an okay game for the Cowboys. They barely get by the Giants, barely, like this much, and then they get absolutely destroyed by the Bears next week. Going into the next week after that, they play the Packers and they actually go toe to toe with this team. I don't think anybody had that outcome. I don't think anybody thought that they were going to tie. And Dak Prescott have as great of a game as he did. 3 touchdown passes, 319 yards, 31 for 40. 31 for 40. When have we seen Dax have a great performance like that since 2023? Ever since his injury. Yeah. So I think the biggest problem with this game, though, by far, no question about it, was defense. Defense was terrible on both sides. This is a defensive nightmare. If I'm both teams, especially the Packers, after that incredible blockbuster acquisition, you can't throw a game to the Cowboys with 40 points. This is a down year for them. This has been an awful period for them, and you gave up 40 points on defense after taking one of the best defensive players in the league, and he really didn't do anything all night for the most part. That's terrible. I would feel terrible as a Packers fan right now, and I would be appalled even more of that game. If you're a Cowboys fan, I feel it's better because you don't expect your team to do that good against the Packers. The Packers right now are contenders. I don't know, because last week, I don't really know. I'm not certain that they're that contender of a team. And I think the hype behind Parsons has been proven these past 2 games. Because last week we saw the Browns game. If anybody caught the Browns-Packers game, they lost to Cleveland. They barely scored anything with Cleveland. So I don't know about you guys, but I am not a believer with the Green Bay Packers, despite a great offensive game from both sides. This was just an awful, awful game. But even more so to me with the Packers.
You couldn't have said it any better regarding Micah Parsons. He was basically a non-factor. You allow your old team to put up 40 on you. Not that it's entirely his fault because defense isn't a one-man wrecking crew, but he only had 3 tackles on the day and didn't have any effect in overtime, didn't make a game-winning sack or anything of that nature. But James, I think the great thing, I guess, as true baseball fans is we don't have to witness that. I'm not saying it should happen in a 162-game season, because we do get that runner on second in extra innings rule, which was implemented a few years ago. But how do you feel about ties in the National Football League?
I absolutely hate the fact of ties, not just in football, but just in anything. I feel like there's always got to be a winner, and just like Perry said, there's got to be there's especially in when you're only playing like 17 games, you got to have a winner. It's just bad. I don't like seeing it. I used to love watching the 18-inning baseball games, the ones that went really long. So, it's just hard because then it just feels like both teams lose instead of it being a tie. It just kind of feels like both teams lose. So I absolutely hate it.
There needs to be a solution. I think if you go to the college football, they don't end in ties. They play to a winner. I thought that game there were many games a few weeks ago where it didn't end in a tie, and then you go to that double overtime period where you start the ball at the opponent's 20-yard line, and it makes things so exciting. And I like how you mentioned about those 18-inning games. Nothing was better than going to the ballpark and sitting for a 4-hour game. I think that the biggest conflict from Major League Baseball about implementing the pitch clock was that you don't spend as much time at the ballpark because the games are reduced. But all the other 3 major sports leagues in the United States have a solution to not ending games in ties. And the NFL is the only one, excluding the playoffs, that does not have a solution. So we have seen that Commissioner Roger Goodell is open to changing things. He did it with the kickoff rule. And not that has had a widespread effect, but special teams has also become much more prominent in the NFL this year. It seems as if there is a new blocked kicked every single week. So it's very interesting, and hopefully one day in the foreseeable future, ties will be abolished from the NFL. But staying on the topic of Week 4, this is a topic that no sports fan likes to talk about because it really just hurts. Not from a player, looking at a player, but these are human beings with feelings who have families, and it's not about the money, it's about their careers potentially being put in jeopardy. And that happened in Week 4 as the injury bug was much widespread as star wide receivers Malik Neighbors for the New York Giants and Tyreek Hill both are now out for the season as Neighbors suffered a torn ACL in his right knee and Tyreek Hill suffered a dislocated knee and multiple torn ligaments, including a torn ACL and torn MCL. And I think a lot of this goes back to turf fields and a big conversation about how National Football League should implement and make it a rule that all owners have to put in grass fields. Because currently there are 12 out of 32 NFL stadiums that have turf fields, and 14 out of 32 of those teams play their home games on turf fields when you take in account that the Chargers and Rams share a stadium, and so do the Jets and Giants. So that's a little bit half of the NFL that plays on artificial turf. And the biggest difference with turf, there's a lot of cutting motion and action in the NFL. To sum it up, a lot of quick movements. And when you're running the football and you make a quick move and you try to juke someone out, your cleat can get stuck in the turf, and that can put a lot of pressure on your joints. And then on the other hand, grass, everything is a much lighter on your cleats, and you are able to do things much more easily. Do we think that turf fields, are the main effect of these injuries, or is it just football being a violent sport in general?
Well, when I was younger and I used to play Pop Warner, I always used to think that the turf was a lot more comfortable and safer. But now as I get older, I've heard a lot more people complaining about the turf, that it's just the grass is just not, well, obviously it's not accurate at all to regular grass, but just the turf feeling is just uncomfortable. Apparently people have gotten I've heard from players saying they got rashes from the turf, which is just a little weird, but I guess it really just depends on how the player is and how they are able to land. I think it all has to do with how you land, personally. I don't think the grass really has anything to do with it being good or bad. I definitely do think regular grass has more of the advantage. But, say, if it's like rain or snow, would you rather play on the turf? Would you rather play on the grass?
I think the turf is awful. I hate turf. I hate turf in football. In soccer, it's a completely different thing. They've been playing with turf for a very long time. But in football is made to be played with grass. Some of the best weather conditions come from grass. We don't have any more mud games. We don't got any real snow games really anymore. And we don't really got any rain games as much anymore. We don't have like the real rain games where there's the weather conditions just affect the game completely and they make the game even more entertaining. Turf limits all of that. Turf limits all your creativity. It limits everything. And I just hate, and especially I think turf toe really is a real thing because when I used to play football, I used to hate playing with turf. We used to actually play with some turf. There'd be some fields I play with grass, some with turf. I think grass is so much better for the players because it's a natural thing for the athletes. Most of the time you play with grass, and with turf it's a lot. To me, from an entertainment standpoint and a playing standpoint, it is not like it's artificial. It's artificial for a reason. It's not natural. When I used to play, even with like cleats, with like the Adidas cleats I used to have when I was younger, when I played ball, it didn't feel, and the footing never really felt right when I played with turf, and I felt like I played worse when it came to turf. So I do think turf is by far.
Well, at the end of the day, I do see why they do it. It's not for no reason. These are companies. They're trying to make money, and they're trying to do what's most cost effective. When it's turf fields, it's less upkeep. They don't have to, make sure they don't got to cut it. They don't have to water it. They don't have to do X, Y, and Z. They can put stuff over it. But it doesn't make it the right thing to do. Just sports across the board, I think, are better on natural surfaces. I think that for baseball. I think that for soccer even. And I definitely think that for football. The balls bounce differently. People land differently. It's just unnatural. And I just think the natural setting is just better across the board for all sports. And I think it really would stop injuries. I do think it would. Excellent point by all of you, really. But with a little less than 3 minutes remaining on the Sports Corner, I'll give everybody a second to pull up the Week 5 schedule in the NFL, and I want to go around the room and have everyone give their upset of the week. And I will get things started with the 4:25 p.m. game on Fox as the Washington Commanders head to Los Angeles, California, in SoFi Stadium to take on the Los Angeles Chargers. And I actually didn't know this, but the Chargers are favored in this game by 2.5 points. But even if Jaden Daniels doesn't play, Marcus Mariota has done a great job as the backup. I think that the Commanders get back on track. They're 500 right now at 2-2. I think they take this victory to help them improve to 3-2 and go into Los Angeles, disrupt Justin Herbert, Dan Quinn, defensive-minded head coach. I think the Commanders get it done.
I gotta go. You know what, Sebastian? This is a tough week, too, because a lot of these are like tightly contested games, or they're kind of out of reach for some of them. For some of them, it's out of reach. But you know what? Give me the 1 o'clock game with the Broncos and the Eagles. I'd say the Broncos can. I'll put the chip on the Broncos for that one. If there's any team, I know Perry's all upset over here that I picked that. If there's any team that I really am convinced with the Broncos. I mean, they've had a really good season so far. They haven't played the best opponents, but they've looked. They've had the best defense in the league right now. And in my book, defense wins ball games, and they have put up the. They've put up the least. They let their offense or the other team's points. They've let up the least amount of points for the other. The least amount of points for the other teams in the NFL so far, and their defense has held the ground probably the best. So I give the Broncos. Give me the Broncos for the upset this week over the Eagles.
I gotta go with my Dallas 8. The Dallas are just so inconsistent. I'm not saying that the Jets are better. They're not. They're terrible. Probably just as bad as the other New York team. But I just feel like the Jets have a way to possibly pull it off here. And I also see the possibility of the Jaguars pulling up an upset the next day, beating the Chiefs. If you look at the Jaguars' defense, it's been so dominant recently. Just a whole change in everything. Still got some things to work on offense, but the Chiefs have just not been the three-time champs that we've seen, especially with that loss to the Eagles last year. Go Birds. But just I think the Chiefs upset, and I think there will be a Jets winning that against the Cowboys.
I don't know if this is much of an upset, but give me the G-Men, no neighbors, no problem. I want to see Jackson Dart go out there again and just absolutely ball, have the time of his life. It's going to be Giants Saints. Give me the G-Men for 2 in a row.
I love all of those picks. We'll start keeping track here on the Sports Corner. We'll make it a weekly thing until the NFL ends to give our predictions and see who comes up on top in the Upset of the Week special. But that is going to do it here on the Sports Corner. You have been listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair from Sebastian Stratton, Perry List, Lorenzo Gonzalez, and James Gregg. James and Lorenzo, special shout out. Great job running the board, gentlemen. That was very exciting to see our ADJs in action. But we will see you next week, same time, 9 a.m., right here on the radio. Go Yankees. Have a great day and have a great weekend, everyone.
Let's go Yankees, baby.